One day, a mite named Gary was scuttling along the stacks with a friend of his, Harry. A productive day of munching on the corners of some hardcover pop fiction titles had come to an end, and the two headed home to their respective sections. Gary to science fiction, Harry to horror. Since Harry was loopy from partaking of some Clive Cussler, Gary saw to it that Harry got home without tumbling off the shelf. "Well," said Harry, lurching to a stop in front of the library's collection of Stephen King, "this is me." Gary looked up at the worn spines, among which were It, Cujo, Christine, and Carrie. He frowned, or did the equivalent for an arthropod, and said, "Honestly, Harry, how can you stand living in this stuff? It's utter trash." Harry shrugged four of his shoulder joints. "Ugh, it isn't so bad, and the stand is decent once you get used to the aftertaste. Yeah, the flavor may be good, but what's all this doing for your brain?" Harry mulled it over and shrugged a second time. No bounce, no play. Gary took hold of Harry and shook him. "You just quoted Dreamcatcher, Harry. Dreamcatcher! Have you never once entertained the thought that there might be something more for us? Something better?" "What, you mean like another section?" Gary nodded emphatically. Harry recoiled. "Come off it, Gary. You want to get us kicked out of the library?" "On the contrary, I'm thinking of running the place." The mite who lived snugly in the horror section suddenly looked quite horrified. "You're crazy." "Come on, Harry, look how we live. Everyone stays in their proper section, eats the same books their whole lives, and never gets a chance to live anywhere or eat anything else. The big bugs in the encyclopedias have been running things that way for 150 years. That's because the system's good. It's good, don't get me wrong, but it could be better. I've got big ideas, Harry. Big ideas that'll shake the books right off the shelves. But I don't have the knowledge to make them work. However, if I could get a bite of an encyclopedia..." As Harry edged back towards The Shining, he asked, "What big ideas could you have? You're a sci-fi bug." Gary didn't bother pointing out the irony of that statement. "Well, for starters, I'd set a rotation on what we eat. Each group of mites would spend a certain amount of time in one section, eating the same books there. Then at the end of that time, they'd pick up and move to the next section, recently vacated by the outgoing mites, and spend the same amount of time there. And so on and so forth throughout the Kelly. A little taste of everything. Equality of knowledge. No more knowledge gap." Harry shook his tiny head. "You've been in the Asimov books too long, Gary. Switch to Hubbard instead." And with that, Harry darted into what passed for a masterwork among the apes who were too simple to know it was a book before it was ever a movie.